So now we will be starting with material science. So the basic material properties and all. Material science. That's material properties. So let me introduce to some basic material properties. So the property difference starts from isotropy and versus anisotropy. So isotropy means the material properties are independent of. So these are independent of direction. In all the direction x, y, z, x, y, x, z, any direction you take, the material properties remain constant in here. While anisotropic materials, the material properties vary with the direction of measurement. So here the properties vary with direction. The example of isotropic material would be our metals like iron, aluminium, etc. And anisotropic materials would be sometimes composites, which are artificially manufactured, sometimes composites. And natural composites would be the wood, bark, and banana peels and everything like that. Laminated plastics, etc. So in one direction they may have a very high amount of tensile strength, while in the other direction they may have a very less tensile strength, and so on. Then the next thing is Poisson's ratio. So it gives relation between strains. So it gives relation between strains. So Poisson's ratio is shown by letter nu, nu. So the nu is given by strain. So strain is sigma. So this is strain. Epsilon, and sigma is stress. So this is stress. Okay, and strain. So mu is given by negative of strain in transverse direction divided by strain in axial direction. So axial direction is with respect to the axis on which the force is applied or the stress is applied, and this is the perpendicular direction to the axial direction. And Poisson's ratio is always greater than 0 for common materials. There are few exceptions, but they are very rare. And for isotropic, which we discussed here, isotropic and linearly elastic materials, the mu is between 0 to 0.5. So mu is always less than 0.5. And for common materials, so these conditions will give the limitations to being 0.5. There are materials which can have negative Poisson's ratio and Poisson's ratio greater than 0.5. But real materials, real metals, which we can talk about in manufacturing science, will have a ratio from 0 to 0.5. And the common materials like steels and aluminium alloys would have something from 0.2 to 25 to 0.33 maybe. So let's talk about two kinds of stress. So I introduced stress and strain. So stress is sigma, and it is force upon area. And strain, which was epsilon, is change in length upon the original length. So we can define the force and area and change in length in two ways. So stress strain can be defined in two ways. The first way is with respect to original dimension, and second with respect to instantaneous dimensions. Instantaneous dimensions. So here with respect to original dimensions means the area, that is the diameter, and the length are the original length when the experiment started, and these are known as engineering stress strain. And here with respect to instantaneous dimensions, as we are stretching it under a tension, if the rod is under tension, the area will decrease as the length is increasing. That is because of volume constant. Volume remains constant because we are not adding something, we are not removing any volume. So area into length first and area into length second position, this must be equal. So if we are increasing the length under tension, if we are giving tensile force, under tensile force the length will increase, therefore area must decrease to keep the volume constant. So if area is decreasing, the diameter will decrease, but the change in diameter from the initial to the final one is very small in case of engineering applications. So we can safely assume and use original dimensions for evaluation of stress and strain, and those stress and strain should be mentioned as engineering stress strain. And when we use with respect to instantaneous dimensions, the original dimension, so a small change in dimensions and will keep on evaluating stress strain at each position. They are called as true stress strain. True stress, true strain. And they will have a small difference in these values, but for plastics and all, since the strain values are very high, they can stretch up to a high dimensions. At that point, true strain and true engineering stress values will vary too much. So we should be careful about using this, and always mention this as an engineering and true stress strains, something like that. And the graph between stress and strain looks like this. So this is stress, these are strains. As we apply force, we will have change in dimensions, and since we are easily be able to measure the change in length, hence we have kept the strain on the x-axis and the stress on the y-axis. So for common materials it looks like this. So till a portion, it's straight line, y is equal to x, y is equal to mx, and after that it follows some complex curve, and that complexity depends on material to material, but there are points on this curve which are some important points. So this is elastic region. So let me show this here. So till this point there was no load before, then there was uniform and elongation area reduction. So this point till this point, this is elastic region, and then after it is plastic region, and over here this slope indicates the elastic modulus, and the plastic modulus has a different value. And till this point there is linear relation between stress and strain. So stress and strain have linear relation, and this slope is given by E, that is the elastic modulus. Okay, and then after here we have a point. The first point which we achieve is the proportionality limit. So first point is the proportionality limit. The second point just after it will be elastic limit. So between these 2 points, the elastic nature is retained, but the stress and strain are not linearly proportional as it were before. Then the third point just after it will be yield stress or yield point. So if we reach yield point, then after we cannot come back to the original situation of the material. It remains the stretched or compressed whatever loads it had taken on it. Then after we'll have, so there could be multiple yield points. So one would be an upper yield point and lower yield point. Generally we'll take lower yield point as the yield point, and sometimes yield point are not visible in such graphs. So in that case, let me complete this. So the highest point over here on the curve where the highest stress occurs, that is called as the ultimate strength, and the last point over where it breaks, so this is the breaking point or the rupture or fracture, and the portion from here to here between the ultimate strength and the rupture point is necking. So the process of necking occurs, necking, necking. Okay, so that is a small crack will happen, will initiate, and it will travel through the cross section, and then at the point of fracture the parts will be different. There will be two parts, and so the stress strain curve gives relationship that describes the mechanical properties for material subjected to tension, compression and shear stress, and sometimes more complex stresses, bending stress and flexural stress, etc. So we can differentiate some regions over here. So this was the elastic region, that's the elastic region. Then there is yielding, so between the two yield points we have yielding region. Then this till the ultimate strength, till the point of ultimate strength, this is the strain hardening region, strain hardening region. And the last region is the necking, which I described earlier. So strain hardening is very interesting thing. Let me describe that. So as we are stretching it, the number of deformations are increasing, and more dislocations will happen, and dislocations will move from their original position and start interacting with more number of another interactions like dislocations. The atoms will start interacting with more and more atoms. So these interactions will impede the mobility of various dislocations, and as a result, so the number of the interactions have increased. So as a result, the strength of the material increases, and this increasing strength due to immobility. So before they could be packed like this, not completely formed in a proper structure, but after the grains and atoms can get better packing, and we can say they have more number of interactions, and they are more completely packed now. So they are immobile, while earlier they were mobile, and now they have immobility. So due to immobility of dislocations, the increasing strength, the strength has increased partially. This increasing strength depends on material to material, but this increasing strength is called as strain hardening, and it implies an increasing strength of material due to the deformation. So we have deformed the material, but then also we are getting increasing strength, and the hardness. So we'll describe some other material properties also now. So this is a typical curve for ductile materials, where we have a clear yield point and strain hardening and fracture, while for a brittle material does not go under such strain hardening, and the elastic modulus of brittle materials are higher than ductile materials. So they have a more steeper curves, and at the point of fracture they just completely fracture without giving any indication. So in a way, ductile materials are better for engineering applications because they will strain hardening, they undergo strain hardening, and when they are going to get fracture, they have a indication, they have a visible indication of some cracks, while the brittle materials won't give any visible indications, and they can instantaneously break off. And there is one thing called size effect. So this is very interesting, another interesting thing, size effect. So as dislocations help in slip, so the dislocations we had, so they were easily be able to, they won't be easily be able to slip over here, but they will slip here easily. So as dislocations help in a slip, the shear stress necessary to cause slip will increase. So here the shear stress will be more shear stress will be required to slip. And if crystals are tested too small, so if the relative size of crystals are very small and will have very few imperfections, and therefore strength depends on size of the crystal. So along with atom size of atom, we have crystals or the grains. So the grain size also gives a lot of indications about the strength. So strength increases depends on size of crystal, and decreasing strength of crystal with increase in crystal size. That is the size effect. So as the crystal size increases, the strength decreases. And if the size is small, that means they have better packing, they will not slip easily, and they will have more strength. Now I described plasticity and elasticity, so let me clear that thing once more. So elasticity is the material property which enables the body to regain its original shape. So it can come back to the original shape after the loading has been unloaded, and they are required to study structural constituents, while plasticity is the material's ability to be permanently deformed even after the load is removed, and required for studying processes when permanent deformations are required. And we require permanent deformations in processes such as rolling, forging, etc., or where we are permanently deforming it to give another shape to the material. So now let's go for some material properties, common terminologies for material properties. So first is the strength. So strength is the capacity of material to withstand some load, and strength is described as force upon area. Stress was also described as force upon area. And strength is the maximum stress a material can withstand, but there can be different kinds of strengths, so we'll see them. So depending upon the nature of stress, so stress can be tensile, compressive, bending load, torsional load. Torsional means a torsion. We have different kinds of strengths, so we'll see strength. So elastic strength is the first thing. So the value of strength corresponding to transformation from elastic to plastic behavior. So from elastic to plastic, this is the maximum strength till the elastic region, right? This is the maximum strength till the elastic region. So that is the elastic strength. Then the next thing is toughness. So toughness is the property of a material that indicates the maximum energy it can absorb before fracture. So it's very useful to draw the curve here. So it's the amount of energy absorbed by material before rupturing. So this is the total amount of area below stress strain curve. This is the energy per volume. Very useful, energy per volume. And small toughness, like ceramic materials have small toughness values. Polymers polymers would have very small toughness values and metals have large toughnesses. And we can see ductile would have a higher area relatively, and brittle will have smaller area because strain hardening does not happen here. Then the next thing will be stiffness. So the stiffness is the property of material by the virtue of which it resists deformation. We want to resist deformation. And stiffness is measured by modulus of rigidity. So rigidity is another important word. Modulus of rigidity, and rigidity is the measure of resistance offered by an elastic body. So we are in the elastic region right now. We are playing around in the elastic region. Offered by an elastic body to deformation. So that rigidity K will be the force upon the displacement it occurred. So it is the unit force required for unit deformation. And complementary to rigidity will be flexibility. So we can say either the material is rigid or it is flexible.
Okay, fine.